So would you help me put your hands together and welcome Mr. David Reed. As some kids would say, sir.
Nobody here tonight, thank you. So, that's quite an introduction, the best principal. What he doesn't know, it's my first principal gig, actually. But I've been in leadership for the longest time, and I love schools, and I love Jesus. And there's always a tension within me, because how much do I stick to the script, and how much do I follow the Spirit? And I'm sorry, but the Spirit always wins. Thank goodness I've learned I'm not worth much. So, you can talk about qualifications. What qualifies me to be standing here tonight, I think sensitivity to the Spirit is probably the biggest. And that's an encouragement to you as parents. When you talk about this topic of, godly parenting in the digital age, you have a comforter, you have a guide, and my encouragement, if you get nothing else, lean into the Spirit in this, and He will lead you. He's faithful. But also I'll stick more or less to the script, and we'll see. But something that's not in the notes, and I've felt this for actually most of today. I've been meditating on Acts 17. And it's verse 26 really, I think is where the clincher is. It says, God's chosen exact times and places we should live. Some translations say the boundaries of our habitation, the boundaries where we live. And as a parent, my encouragement to you is, if you look at the taking up habitation, it's about displacement as well. You carry with you as a parent the gravitas or the strength to actually, if you think about when you get into the bath, you displace water. You actually get to displace things in your family as well. So, and God has chosen the exact times and places where we do that. So rest into your role as a parent and allow displacement to happen. If that makes sense to anybody, I trust it does. You have to forgive me, I always put this in my pocket. But just before we get going, there's a reality that the digital world has invaded our lives. If you look hard, you can see that I'm not a digital native, I'm a digital immigrant. In other words, I grew up without a phone, and then I grew into a Nokia 3310, like some of you had, and then I've adapted to the smartphone world. But I will say the digital world has invaded us, but we can't actually, tonight's not about shunning that world. There's so many tools that I use daily that I'd encourage you, we need to use them well. And just by way of, there's a fun backstory to this, but I wanted to just play a clip. And this is what we get with the internet. So you'll notice that the people speaking aren't South African, but they're going to be talking about Acts Church. You can play the clip, thanks.
Hey, welcome to the Deep Dive. Yeah. Today we're doing just that. We're looking closely at an organization using materials they've put out there themselves.
Yep.
Our focus today is Acts Church. It's a Christian church, multi-campus. Mm-hmm. We've got stuff from their website, basically. And the goal, is to figure out who they are, what they're really about, just based on their own words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you say multi-campus, it's quite a few. They list Glen Austin as north, Vorna Valley is south.
Okay.
Then West Dean, Springs, Cape Town, all South Africa, obviously, yeah. But also Bradford in the UK.
Wow, UK as well.
Yeah. Straight away, that tells you something about their ambition, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
So who's driving this whole thing?
Well, the site names Peter and Tammy DeFen, because they're the lead pastors.
And founders.
And founders, yeah.
Right.
Right back in 1999. So they've been there from the start, it seems.
1999, okay. And what's their, big picture goal?
Well, what really stands out is this number, 70. They want to plant 70 churches globally.
70, that's a lot.
It is. And there's a strong emphasis, too, on raising up the next generation, empowering them.
70 churches and focusing on youth. That's quite the mission.
It definitely signals a very intentional growth
So
plan.
we could keep on listening to it, but you can probably cut it there. My point is that we have access to incredible information. I'll bring some more color to why I'm using that later. But here we have two Americans talking about a church movement in South Africa, and obviously in Bradford. But I'll bring some more color to that. Are we working here? There we go. I don't know if you can read the bottom. It says, basically, this is a provocation, and just to acknowledge there's different levels of understanding of the online world within this room. So forgive me if we think of it as a continuum. Some people are new to the online world, don't really know how my smartphone works, all right? And then we probably have some programmers in the room. So just understand there's difference in the room, and I'll appreciate the grace to start at a baseline so we all kind of work up. So really, the question there is, how safe are our children in a white picket fence neighborhood? I think we'll probably all agree, well, we'd imagine safe. How about here? Not so much, right? And thirdly, how about here? And it's really to provoke, I would say, the first two. Actually, the world that we live in now are all. The veneer of safety has been removed, even within the neighborhoods. So, just to acknowledge, I went too far there. Tonight's not going to, if you go, there's lots of people that do these kinds of talks online, and I really don't want to be the fearmonger guy. So tonight's not, the heart behind it is not about that, but it's really about this. So we need to be aware. Is it okay if I don't read my slides? Because I trust that you can. But we did live in a world where we actually have an enemy. And he presents as a lion. He's not the lion. We have a lion, and his eyes are like fire. We have a lion, and it's the Lion of Judah. But the enemy will come around, and he'll prowl, and he'll growl, and he'll have a go. But we need to be sober-minded. And I think in the area of the online world, we need to actually sit up and take notice, because the world has changed. So just to shape tonight's thinking, forgive the pastor in me, but I'm going to go with C's. And this is kind of the different areas of concern. So I'm going to allocate to a table. We're going to have a lot of discussion. I don't like the sound of my own voice that much, so you're going to get time to talk around your table. Just for the sake of transparency, the reason for that is there will be specialists in this room after tonight. Even if there aren't already, I want you to acknowledge people in your community that you can go to after tonight. No one can really come knock on my door at 2 o'clock in the morning when you have a crisis in the space. But the people in your community that you feel comfortable with. So this conversation now is on the table. So that's part of the strength of having conversations around the table. Actually, I remember on Wednesday night, I spoke to Jeffrey, and he seemed quite confident with that thing. So let me call him. Does that make sense? So really just the five areas of concern that I'm going to give understanding to those. So it's contact, commerce, conditioning, content, and contradictions. So just firstly, contact. We've got to really consider the who. Who are we actually, and I'm saying we, obviously also our kids, who are we making contact with? Yes, strangers, but also people from different communities, different countries, different values. So it's not always the fact that they might be stealing something from us, but they just might be shaping a different reality. And the conversations sometimes are around a different value system and around a different understanding of how the world works. The when with contact. When I was at school, if I was bullied, if I was harassed, I'd go home. The online world is 24/7 and it's everywhere. So a lot of the bullying that happens in the online world happens on weekends, happens late at night. The why is also a question. Why is somebody contacting me? The old adage of, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Not true. Right? And very often it is exploitative as well. There's a reason why people contact, and we'll get into some of the reasons for that. But we have to think, who am I actually, if I give my child a phone, let's bring it right home, I'm actually giving, we used to have phone books, do you remember those? Right? Thank goodness we don't have those anymore. But essentially I'm giving the world my child and saying, have at it. If it's unfiltered, if it's governed. So moving along. There we go. Comments, I think that was the second one. This is the most obvious one. I think obviously e-commerce and Temu, we've all been there and regretted that. And then we also have in-app purchases with games. People are trying to make money. You've got to ask yourself the question, why is Facebook free? Because it's not. The latest commodity that people are trading is your time. And they pay a premium for that. Then if you're familiar with the concept of clickbait, it's things that are interesting, and I click on it, and it might take me to a buy site, it might take me to a virus site, it might take me somewhere where I wasn't initially wanting to go, but it's now, there's somebody incentivized to take my time or to take my computer. Right? And there's even talk of bit mining viruses now, where they actually use your computer in the background to mine Bitcoin. Anybody know how to do that? Let me know. Just kidding. Curated advertising, can I be honest? That's been happening for years. Funny, you talk about fly fishing, the next day, wow, look at all these things popping up on my phone. It's amazing. Phishing, ID theft, I think we've known about that for a long time. Everyone's got an email from a prince somewhere wanting to get rid of his inheritance. Right. And all he needs is the transfer funds. Yeah. Or wanting to buy your car and it's cash, but you have to come and pick him up because you can't afford an Uber. But anyway, all that kind of stuff happens in that online space as well. And then just the most challenging, really, and just a bit of context of what I was involved with the last. So before I started Al Shaddai, I spent 2 years working for a safeguarding and child protection company. And one of our regular occurrences happening in South Africa is sexting and sextortion, essentially. And how that happens is, I'll use an example of a 14-year-old boy, because very often that's where it is. Meet someone online, they present as a 14, 15-year-old girl, get very acquainted, get very friendly, get too friendly, images are shared, dad gets an email. It was never a 14-year-old girl. 57-year-old man sitting in Shanghai. He's now got photos of your kid and threatening to release them to Pornhub, or you pay 120,000 rand. That's how it works. So that's a short version of how that happens, but that's essentially what is happening a lot. It's a presentation of something that's not really. So you never know who you're really talking to online. And that's now become commercial. I think the last time I saw it, about 6 months ago, a YouTube video training people how to do that. And how you can make, this is kind of your expected out, and pay more for the, B side of that tape. All right, so contact, commerce, conditioning. Now this, confession's good for the soul, right? I'm a gamer. So if anything else qualifies me, I've spent a significant amount of time online, playing online, loving it. Great, because a lot of my friends, what you probably didn't know is I spent 19 years in Asia. So a lot of my friends are there. So it's a great way for me to contact them, chat with them, we play and we chat and how's your mom? Fine. How's your, we're busy having conversations while we're shooting at each other. It's fun. But the problem I've had, and I realized this when I was playing Call of Duty, is the people jumping on there are sometimes, they're very often not my age. Very often 12, 11, younger. And the conditioning I'm really talking about goes into the disposable relationships. It's broader than just this, but the problem we had at school, if we had a conflict with someone, you had to sort it out. Online, I have an altercation with someone, I just log off. And then I log into a new server. I've never have to restore that. I never have to fix that relationship. So I have a disposable outlook on relationships because I've been trained and conditioned that way. I can play with you, we got on fine. Day 2, we have an altercation. I just unfriend you on the server. or it's just disconnected. So my point is, in the real world, when I have a conflict, I've got to face up to that. But in the online world, I don't. And that's for me, I haven't seen much research on that. I discovered that through experience, as I said. And for me, it was because I'm an adult as well. I was like, I want to chat to that kid because, like, he got it wrong. And the pastor to me is like, who's going to come and help that guy? He's just going to jump from server to server. And unfortunately, when he meets people in the real world, he's going to have the same outlook. And we're seeing that. When kids say, well, I don't have to make up. Why? Why have I got to think about restoration? Because I can just make a new friend. So I also struggle a little bit with guys like Mr. Beast. I don't know if you're familiar. Last stat I saw, 480, I don't know if it was million or billion, his personal wealth. But all he does is give away stuff online or in the real world. Hi, do you want a car? Here. And now our kids grow up thinking, well, that's a reality. It's no reality. When I was in my previous school, the top ambition for a kid under the age of 16 was to become a YouTuber. And unfortunately, you're too late. That boat sailed for most people. But it becomes a goal because they see people like Mr. Beast or other people that Mr. Moneybags, what was the other one? Rolls up in his Cadillac and hands out cash. And that's how he makes money. It's also it's a false reality. People are believing it. Language, obviously. I've mentioned the lack of forgiveness and restoration. But I don't have to talk much about, because I hope this isn't the world that we swiping left and right, if you know what I mean. Dating apps. There's he's not a believer, but a very astute scholar. His name's Dan Ariely. He's a behavioral economist. And he was talking about a non-believer talking about the danger of dating apps. He said, we're on a date and we're already looking for the next one. And that's most people that are on dating apps because of ease of access. And unfortunately with Tinder, it's almost pre-approved sex. It's like, if I've swiped right, I've said yes. So the whole pursuit that we have to actually do in a godly pursuit of a wife, that is just betrayed. And again, that's conditioning, and it's conditioning again to disposable relationships. Should I move on? We're going to take time I'm going to break up groups to choose one, and then we're going to discuss it. Okay. I think I've gone too far. Content. We're probably most familiar with this challenge. When I was young, vulnerability, if I wanted to see a naked lady, I had to steal a magazine because I wasn't going to buy it, right? That was the reality of my world. Now it's a click away, right? And that's also violence, also extremes. So in the UK, in the world of safeguarding and child protection, the threat of indoctrination is a major concern. To terrorist ideals, right? And that's also another form of exploitation. But it's often through content that's not, if you walk past and you look at it, it's somebody talking, but it's indoctrination. So the radicalization of teens in the UK is a major issue. Some of it's been publicized. We've seen guys go and join ISIS. And it's all come from online content. So yes, pornography, but there's so much more in the content that we've got to be thinking about. Then last, I think this is the fifth. I don't know if we missed one. But it feels like contradictions. So hallucination, I think it was 2023, was added with a new, it was actually the new word of the year added to the dictionary, in that it's referring to AI. And when you have so much AI influence on a particular topic, you get false information. And that is online hallucination. So it looks like something, but it's not real. So not only in computer-generated imagery, but also in facts. Okay. You know, when before ChatGPT, let's just use ChatGPT because most people know it. You go online, you do a search, you get 1 million options. And now you've got to feather through the ones where you think you still have to choose which one you're going to read, which article you're going to read. Go to ChatGPT, you get one answer. And it's presented as absolute truth. But there's bias. Because it's coming from someone who's written an algorithm. Right? And interestingly, my daughter did an experiment the other day. She asked ChatGPT, what's your favorite movie? And it told her hers. How does she know that? Because she watches all her movies online. So it said, no, my favorite movie is her favorite movie. It's kind of a little bit scary. But there's a challenge that we're finding in the online world, and I will go specifically to, I've got examples of imagery. So here you've got, so this is an online AI-generated image, whatever. And the prompt I said, a guy surfing in a tailored suit, because you can now create an image that's completely unrealistic. But the challenge with this is also now, when we think about themes that we shouldn't be looking at, I can create an image that I shouldn't be looking at, and it doesn't have to be realistic. Now, to the point where I had some fun with it, top left is the original. Top right, I said, do it in a cubist-style art, so you can see it's bottom left, make it me, so I uploaded a photograph of myself. Bottom right, make me look like Sean Connery. So the point I'm showing with this is you can become very specific with what you're wanting the image to look like. This has also now, we have several cases in South Africa of boys or girls or syndicates going onto whatever site, grabbing an image and creating pornography using an image generator. That's a challenge. All right, so enough of me talking. Those are the 5. I think we got them all, did we? Context, commerce, conditioning, content, and contradictions. All right, how many tables have we got? Why don't we just do it this way? I want you guys to discuss context, and I'm going to put some questions up in a minute. Contact, commerce, can you guys, I don't know if you're going to make a group. Conditioning, content, contradictions. Did I miss you? No, okay. Contact, commerce, conditioning, what do you want to do? Content, okay. First question, so you've got paper, if you want to, the teacher and me, some people like to scribble and draw and make notes, some people like to talk. This is the part where you're going to, and this is the question, what is the greatest challenge in your particular concern? So I've allocated a concern, and we're going to take time to, discuss it, then we're going to have questions and answer and feedback. Is that okay? So if you want to choose a spokesperson for your table, that's fine, but if you all just want to contribute back, we are going to feedback. Everyone understand the assignment? Okay, that's the first question. There are 2 more if we get there. Thank you. All right, so the chat has gone down, so I presume you're done. Why don't we go to, now I'm going to ask those, if you did contact, this is really loud. Can we turn it down a bit? I'm very conscious of sounding so loud. Sorry, with the tables that did contact. Okay, and I'll just go to the question. All right. What would you say that was contact, right? The greatest challenge you've experienced, you've seen, you're worried about?
Yeah, this is loud. Okay, so I would say like one of the greatest challenges with this particular concern in contact is also not being able to control the who, when, and why. We are not with our kids 24/7. Online is available 24/7. So being able to control that is really difficult. Also the accessibility that it is for kids. Like, I suppose we give our kids cell phones at a really young age for the what in case something happens, you know, so give me a call or WhatsApp, or if something goes wrong, then, you know, they need to be able to contact you in a certain way. So it's accessible always, like free periods, break times, like at any point in time. And then I would also say, okay, we did mention that online is available 24/7, but like as parents, most of us, both parents, work in a household. So you're tired. It's you've already had a full day at work. So you come home, you sort the house out, you do all the things that you need to do. Sort the homework out, you know, if that is also part of your job description. So all of that. So you're in bed early. You're in bed by 7:30, 8, or whatever the case may be. So your kids have all this time that they are able to be online and stuff like that. And I would also say, like, one of my concerns is people that play the godly image, like will say nice things or quote the Bible or whatever the case may be, just to grab you in. So it's they get confused. Kids are naive. They can get easily confused. You can tell them something today and something tomorrow, and they are like already, phew, it's like frequency past their brain. Like, you know, so it's, yeah, I would say that would be some of the concerns for contact. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Contact, anything to add? I'm sure. Sorry, I'm a bit slow on the pigs.
I think contact is more age dependent than we would realize, and development stage, because between the ages of 1 and 3 our children should not have a screen, because they're still developing and they end up losing a lot of creativity due to the fact that they get stimulated so much. And then contact later on is important still for us to teach them how to navigate the contact space, because they might need to contact us, and later they might need to contact friends, as we do now, just contact our friends. And it's important for us as parents to learn how to, because we can be the point of contact. We can end up giving our phones to our kids where they try and contact someone else, and in that instance, like she said, they can use that instance when we're not looking and not being vigilant to do the right things. So contact is very age dependent, because at some point you have to teach your children rather how to navigate and who to navigate to within contact, instead of just trying to keep it away from them. Because what we've learned in general is, even us as kids, when our parents said, don't do this, what we end up doing is we try it ourselves. So it's very, very age dependent, and you should really look at what your child's development stage is and what is important for them to learn. Because one child might, if you've had multiple children, I have not, but I've seen with me and my brother, we navigate different situations differently.
Thank you, thank you. Maybe with Christians, we often talk about connection. And one of the false offers with online contact is connection. And for those of us that, I think all of us have got friends in the real world, right? We know the tax involved with establishing and keeping that connection. That's not true in an online contact. Because I can be anything. And there's even friend models now where you can have an AI friend. And they'll just tell you anything you want to know. And they'll be the friend they'll be the most amazing friend. And they'll never fight with you or disagree with you. They might even talk sense to you. That's the scary thing. So remember, it's an AI model. It's not just a Google chatbot. Anyone else in contact that want to... Should we move on? All right. Actually, no, we haven't done... Sorry. Commerce. Sorry, what is the second group? I think it was commerce, right? Is this okay? You guys... I think it's helpful to hear from each other as well, not just me.
I think the greatest concern for all of us within commerce is with regards to the in-app purchases and all the pop-ups that happen on our kids' phones. And a lot of us, our kids' phones are linked to our profiles, and we get the SMSs or the emails to say, oh, there's an in-app, like purchase and that. So I think our greatest concern at the moment is actually being able to master around that. And we were talking about that a lot of us have apps on our phone where we're able to actually control our children's purchases. We're able to control our children's screen time. So we try to do that, but a lot of the times we're unable to when we're not there present with our children all the time, because obviously we all have children of different ages. And I think with teenagers it becomes very difficult, because a lot of teenagers, they are able to find out what the passwords are, and they pretty much do whatever they want to without us knowing. And then also, like you spoke about, the sexting and stuff like that, and uploading pictures on the internet. And like, I don't think children realize that once you upload something, it's there forever. You have your footprint, and it will be there, and no matter what you try and do, it will always be there. And that's, for me, is the greatest concern, is what we actually put out there on social media.
Again, not to scare you, but just a bit of detail. Anybody familiar with, and I'm hoping nobody's familiar with OnlyFans, but OnlyFans is a site that's... Now, you can learn how to make, a table, but most of that's on YouTube, to be honest. OnlyFans is a site where you can upload personal stuff, and it's mainly been used by, and you pay for view, and it's been used by sex workers. The shocking thing is, I got called in to do a conversation with a primary school, not in Cape Town, in another part of the country, where it was a conversation amongst the 12-year-old girls. How do we get onto OnlyFans? And they're not there to teach people how to make wooden tables. And the challenge is that, yes, there's all sorts of limitations, there's all sorts of hurdles they need to jump through, but they can jump through those hurdles. There's a minimum age requirement, there's all that. But with the current way that the web works, is they can jump through those hurdles. Next, I'm waiting for the next, some people say it's going to be part of Web 3.0, but I still haven't seen verification of it, where it's actually going to be authentication. So you need to authenticize your age. Some countries are already doing it. So when I spent some time in Korea, when I went onto a site, I had to give them proof of my age. Upload a passport photo. Upload. So yes, I can jimmy that. But it's already part of some countries' plans in terms of what's happening online. With that, I'll use that as an example. But a lot of sites, the challenge with the commerce is that you can get around that stuff, and heaven forbid our kids start to think that is a career option. Because the reality is the richest people in the world are, some of them are from OnlyFans. Scary. Commerce, other table. Sorry.
We also spoke about the in-app purchases, especially on the games that the children play. that sometimes they'll have these adverts that come in between, and some of those adverts are not, the content is far beyond their age. And at times you'll also get some subscriptions that you find yourself being subscribed to something you've never even seen before, and start receiving emails. And another thing we also spoke about is the location issue, where you start receiving emails informing you about a place you visited a week ago and asking for reviews, and you've never even checked in on that place to say this is where I'm at, but Google already reads where you've walked.
So, thank you. I mean, there's lots of things. I don't want to add too much color to everything, but fun story. I recently, as I said, Timu regretted it. But my last one, so context, I've came back to South Africa in 2020. I used to love fishing, and I didn't fish for the whole time we were in Asia. I came back to South Africa, and I'm like, oh gosh, all these dams, all these. So lures are really cheap on Timu. And I was, last week, I was on just looking, and I was like, okay, let me think about checking out. So I clicked checkout, and it went through to purchase. I don't remember giving them my card details. The goodness wasn't a huge, but it was like, how did that happen? Yes, I bought some lures last month on it, and I bought some fishing line, but this time I went to click checkout because I thought the checkout thing was going to, and I was going to kind of look at the total and think, do I really want to do this? But it went, purchase happened. It was 300, 400 rand. But the challenge is that sometimes when we have a repurchase, those hurdles, they make it really easy. And your first purchase is, are you confirmed, Yes, I'm sure I want to purchase. But it seems like some of those are being cut. And let's be honest, I love China, but they've got an agenda. And the TikTok, you look at TikTok that we have, TikTok that's available in Asia, it's a different animal. There is an indoctrination agenda with it to show people stupid things in the West. And a lot of the stuff in Asia is actually educative. But let me not get sidetracked. Conditioning. Was it you guys? Okay. Not the pastor. You'll be here for ages.
Hello. Okay, so we said for the conditioning, one of the concerns was like how gradual it happens. You don't, obviously that's the point of conditioning, you don't realize it happening. So she mentioned she washed something with like someone getting fresh flowers and how nice the house looks with fresh flowers. And then she felt like that is what her house needs. And she needs to have fresh flowers every month. And if she doesn't have it, then she's not living up to whatever. And there's this expectation created. And I said for me, like postpartum, you look at videos and without noticing, but the people's beds are made and the kitchen is clean. And so now I walk into my house, I'm like, it's a disaster. And I'm obviously not good at life. And it's small things like that without realizing how we're being conditioned. She even mentioned like her boy coming home saying he wants jewelry because what he's seeing is that everyone's wearing jewelry, and they had to speak to him and say, in this house, it's not what we do. But it's a norm for them now. So conditioning is something we think of the internet as this big bad thing. But it's not always the bad things. It's creating unrealistic expectations, what we've also said. And then also, obviously, with algorithms, if you're someone that we mentioned here maybe has a bad relationship with your dad, and you watch one video and you kind of feel, this resonates with me. But now all the time things pop out with bad relationships with parents, and you're like, see, all parents are bad. And it picks up on that. So you have this worldview of bad parents being bad, and it's conditioned to you then that, well, this is what it is, and you don't ever see the other side of that. So, yeah.
Really cool perspective. Interesting side note. I don't know if any of you watched, there was a Netflix documentary, Chuck Norris versus Communism. I really enjoyed it. But the documentary is about how there was during communism, like when So I think the country is Romania, where it was the context of it. But there was a person who was dubbing movies, Hollywood movies, into Romania and kind of distributing them on the black market. But the argument that the movies makers made is that paved the way for the demise of communism in that country. And it's the same point. It was because they were told the West's a failed state, right? They were told, they don't have food, but they were seeing different things in the background. So there's a movie, of a family walking through a supermarket, but they see the food on the shelves. They see all these things, and that unintentional context was shown to these people in Romania, and that formed part of where they started to place distrust in communism. So, I mean, it's a crazy movie, but the point I'm making is that was coincidental. There was no agenda driving that. Now we have an agenda. The thing is with social media and advertising, they are commercially incentivized to get our attention, to get our cash. That was a byproduct of a movie that was never designed for that context. So visually, it says we need to take every thought captive. Our visuals, we need to take, and that's the good and the bad. So I do have an Instagram account, and I follow certain people, and I get inspired, and I get encouraged, and there's some amazing things, but the rubbish that gets thrown in between that, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's really worth it. Anyway, was another conditioning table. So you want to say something? Comment.
The father of advertising had a PhD in psychology, and the best advertisers at advertising companies have the best psychologists because they use that knowledge against us. And that's how far the conditioning goes.
What's another conditioning table? Sorry.
Yeah, so for the conditioning, we discussed the fact that the false image that is created with our children and even us as well. When we look at this content and we see Mr. Beast and we see these YouTube personas that portrays all these the lives that they live and what they get and what they can do, and it looks so easy, and then people start wanting that. They don't understand what's happening in the back of that, who that person really is, but also what it's creating is these false realities that you start believing that this can actually be the truth, and this is the truth because I can make it a reality for me because that guy made it a reality for him. So what it's ultimately building towards is, I think the greatest problem with the conditioning is that you're building these false idols that you're following and you don't even know it. It comes in so slowly without anyone knowing, and you start worshipping something else other than God, but you still think you're following God, but you're pursuing this person or that thing, etc.
I know through experience as well, is you start to assume automatically. So you see something or you see something in someone's life and you automatically think, okay, but that's it. So say I found myself, for example, someone with the bakkie, I automatically think about, okay, but that's a lifestyle. So that's the lifestyle that goes with it. And so you don't see what goes behind every single person's life, but you have this one view before you, and then you're like, okay, but that's how it's supposed to be. And so when something in your life doesn't look the same, you don't know how to handle that because you're like, but how do they have it? How do I get it? Or, for example, families. You see these perfect families, but you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. So you're like, oh, my family is so messed up, I just give up. Instead of, okay, but how do we actually work through this? Because for me growing up, we're used to instant mentalities. If you don't teach your children correctly, but you need to work for something, and it takes time, then you give up easily. So, for example, with school as well, because we have access to instant knowledge as well, we don't know how to learn to get it. We don't know how to work through it. So you just click and you have it. And even like the first thing that comes up, you're like, okay, but that's the truth. Instead of being, okay, but maybe they conditioned it so that is what you think is truth. That's what is searched the most. That is what is clicked on the most, so they perceive that as truth. Instead of experiencing itself. Yeah.
Thank you. Happy to move on to content. I'm just going to be, I think you guys are content, right? Anything to say?
Okay, everybody did so well with their comments. I think you had the most unfocused table here. Yeah, we feel that the biggest challenge with content is that I want to pick up on what this gentleman said, what is age appropriate. It's very difficult to shape what your kid sees or what they experience online that's age appropriate, because the algorithms is geared and is governed by the search engines. So what your kid at 10 might not be able to handle what another kid at 9 is able to handle. So it's very difficult to curate their content absorption. So, and like I said, it's impossible in today's life to safeguard them unless you become Amish, live on a farm, and grow your own food. It's the world that we live in. So we feel in our family is what we prefer to focus on is to encourage and foster good morals and values in our child. Like constantly communicating with her what is right, make good choices, and we've been through situations where we showed her how a algorithm slowly shifts from daisies and roses to darker stuff, and it moves so slowly and subliminally that you don't even notice. 20 minutes later you're looking at stuff that is very far from where you started, and no matter how you start, it will end up on the dark side. So the challenge is that you can't control the content. You can just try and guide decision making and help them make good choices on what to expose themselves to outside of the boundaries that you've set in, because the older they get, the weaker those controls that you have become. So if you don't start early when they're younger to teach them how to govern themselves, when they eventually get exposed, when the barriers go down, they need tools. If they don't have those tools that have been developed from young, then they're going to get into trouble later on in life.
Thank you. So, yes, train up a child in the way that they should go, and they won't depart from it. But something else that was mentioned is that slow drifting. Anybody read Screw Tape Letters? C.S. Lewis wrote a book it's a fascinating read, but it's fiction, but it's based on truth, and it's basically it's not a book review, but anyway, sorry. There's a demon training another demon on how to kind of win Christians for the dark side, and that's the strategy. It's slow. It's not the sudden. But it's the slow pulling away, and that is an enemy agenda. So it's written into the algorithms. The slow and suddenly, what am I watching? Have you ever been like, gosh, how did I get there? Well, because it's been driven. The other content.
Thank you. Some of the what we looked at for content is that contents now are being unfiltered. They don't get filtered for the kids, and it's superficial, it's distorted reality, and it's less educative, depending on the social media site that they get to visit. Even you're watching Coco Melon, or in the past you watch Barney, it's like for 1 hour, so the kids gradually learn things. But nowadays Coco Melon 2 minutes, so it's short. It creates short attention lifespan, so they are less focused now. You want to talk to them for 1 hour, you find it difficult to get their attention. I saw a video on Facebook one time, and a teacher was bitterly complaining that you can't even get kids to listen to you focusedly anymore. So, and it's targeted. It's targeted. So once you visit the CocoMelon site, there, you know, each time you want to browse, you keep seeing CocoMelon alone. So if you want to go through search for a grade 2 learning, reading, it takes you a while to get there. And each time it comes back to those short attempt here, CocoMelon thing. So it's unfiltered, it's targeted, and in those days we watch long cartoons like Lion King, and you know, you sit down quietly, but now you put them there, it's difficult. So, so and these are, it leads to the conditioning thing. So, so it creates less focus, and it's, the reels are out there now. If you are on Facebook and you are a content creator, you know, you go to your algorithm, you see there's a reel, the 30 seconds one, it's moving, it's there. And 1 hour or 20 minutes video, nobody's watching, even for the kids. So it's less filtered, it's distorted reality, it's superficial. That's,
So a very good point is how the content is actually designed to condition as well. When last did you watch an old movie? Like, I'm talking Clint Eastwood old. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Not a great movie. But I did do film study. And if you look at the shot length, the length of a frame shot of old movies, 15, 20, 30 seconds. Now it's 2, 3 seconds. If that. CocoMelon, maybe 1.5 seconds. And the question I ask is why, and I think one of them is to insert advertising. It's a lot easier. We have a short story, shortcut, advert. And there's a commercial. All right, so we've done the first 4, last one, contradictions. Who was there? This side. Was it you guys? Contradictions? You. Okay. There you go.
Oh, okay. Clayton, do you want to do your demonstration? Oh, we can do it after, it's fine. We had a few points, but I think filters always one side and not the other. So it's just a filtered reality. So people don't look the way they look on Instagram and on TikTok. There's a whole bunch of filters and AI filters and everything that they're projecting as the norm. Somebody mentioned it already, to say that that's shaping what we see as, okay, that we need to attain to that. Divisive opinions. So just farming likes and it says pushing for a certain side, not always the true side. So it's just starting off with like a clickbait headline, something, and oh, okay, it grabs attention, and there's just wild discourse happening in the comment section, but it's just there to build that person's content, the likes and the traffic that's coming to that site or that page, with no real substance behind it. It's just creating division and arguments, and people get sucked into that, spend the whole day arguing online, and most of the time it's with bots that don't exist. Then social media posts created for the purpose, okay, yeah, driving up engagement, fake AI-generated content with no substance at all, because now you can automate a YouTube channel just through ChatGPT or DeepSeek, and then it just creates the content. There's no thought being put into it, and it's pushed out there while people consume it, and it's just time wasting. And then students using AI instead of actually doing the work. You know, the real concern is that we're going to have doctors that pass exams with ChatGPT. Clayton, sorry, my young assistant Claytus is going to give us a demonstration.
So this is a demonstration for what points? Oh, the dividing is, yes. So here we have a symbol, a symbol here. So if I can ask you, what symbol is this? A 5, yes. But if I turn it to something like this, but if I turn it to something like this, a 9 or an S. If I turn it to something like this, it's a very weird square root. So So it like shows where I made that content, but every single person has their own view, their own perspective. But what is the actual truth behind why I made that content? It's to deceive you so that I can grow my likes and comments.
Yeah, and to that point, I don't know if the challenge world, the different online challenges, some of them are, the Ice Bucket Challenge was one, it was went viral first. It was fun and relatively harmless, and the genesis of it was for a good cause. But there's some that are incredibly dangerous. And yeah, so that again, people do that. I'm going to do something crazy just to get likes. And yeah, it's a challenge. Was there another contradiction table? Sorry. There wasn't, just the one. So those were the 5 areas I wanted to talk to you. There is a second question, but I thought to maybe jump, if we've got time, I'm going to jump to some solutions, because I think we've probably saturated ourselves with concern. But let me just show you the second question, and I'll give you some advice, if that's okay. So it's the question is, how can we parent to encourage exploration while teaching children? We've already kind of touched on it, to train up a child. There's a concept in the education world, the principle of first mention. And it's, you may be familiar with this, but if I'm the first person, so if I have a science teacher and he's the first one that teaches me on, let's say, states of matter, I will always in my mind think of him as the specialist. So my encouragement to you as parents, when topics come up, be the first to talk about it. Because I want to, blue sky, the big one is if I'm always the one that they come back to and talk to. Sometimes we're too late for that, but I want to have a voice in the conversation. When I shut stuff down, what happens? It doesn't necessarily stop. You become irrelevant. You've pulled yourself out of the conversation. I want to be involved with every conversation. I've got 2 teenage daughters. By the grace of God, they love me. I don't know how that works. But 17 and 14. And I've had to bite my tongue because I don't want to shut down the conversation. And so to answer that question, sometimes the conversation goes very quickly to somewhere where I don't know the answer to the question. I say, Jesus, help me. And guess what? Guess what? He's good. He's very good. So I sometimes come off looking really smart to my kids, and that's probably why. But yeah, I think that you want to be engaged in the conversation until they die. And hopefully you do before they do. Right? When do they stop being your kids? Right? My dad stopped being my dad the day he died. I wanted to give you some handles. Okay, we're not going to go to that question. All right, so this is suggested some different approaches to how do we parent them online. I think the first, and it's worth stating because it's not necessarily the reality in every home, is that online you are still the parent. We make a mistake when we try to be the friend. And what I mean with that is, who gave them the device in the first place? It's not theirs. And I think my encouragement is that remain as a parent. I'm loaning this to you. Right? And so the first model, shared login, open access, that's what I want to advocate for in terms of that's how it should work. And that's how it is with my 17-year-old. So what it means is I have her passwords. I can look at her phone at any time. But here's the kicker. She has mine. So I want to model. And I don't clear my browsing history. So if she wants to look at my browsing history, it should go back to when I got the phone. Right? Why is that important? Because I can force it and they will see through it. They will see through it. They will double standard. Actor, hypocrite. Right? So this is a tough conversation for some because My email's also on here. Right? My work email, and there's highly confidential stuff on my phone. My children, I've trained them. There's certain things you use on my phone. You can phone people. If you want to check my Instagram account, check my Instagram account. You don't go to my email. They've got no reason to go. They're not even in the school context, so they don't even know anyone there. But what I want to advocate in strongest terms is open access both sides. So I've got there modeled or imposed. Model it. And I'll tell you what, if you've got to get a new phone to do that. All right. Then there's a probable cause standard. So we're getting to the stage with the 17-year-old now. She's turning 18 in August. She's still going to be my child. If I have a reasonable cause, I'm going to say, give me your phone. Why? Because I'm a dad. And there's enough trust in our relationship when she will go, yeah, I need some help. And this, to give you an example, when sudden changes of behavior, sudden attitudes, sudden responses where did that come from? Okay. And then it'll be, okay. And now it's there's probable cause. So we have that as a standard in our relationship. And sorry, just with this, our family has my passwords. So my wife, my kids, my mom wanted to, she could. Probably break it. But just kidding. All right, trust and verify. Again, age appropriately. I trust, but every now and then I come back and say, hey, let me have a look. We had this, must be about 2 months ago. We were out. Our kids have got all sorts of things that govern their online world, but we were out. We came back. Actually, I think it was at an elders meeting. Came back and the lights of the house were still off. I was like, gosh, what's gone wrong? Went in and both of them on laptops. I was like, okay. There's a probable cause. I know you've been online for at least 2 hours. I'm going to have a look. Both of them. And I was like, okay, sure. And thank goodness it was just movies. And then in time, monitor and withdraw. I don't think, but always monitor, but withdraw. But you can cycle between these as a thinking person. Any questions about that?
My concern is, are we really asking the right questions? Because at the end of the day, my son is 3, but I don't allow him. I obviously can't share my passwords and stuff, so that one will be scratched, and I have to have common sense for that. But let's say my son is 6, he can remember these things. Do I really want to give him, even if what I monitor and I view is not wrong? A private browser is easy to access. Technology is becoming smarter than ever. They can buy, we didn't have phones at that point, but I've seen kids that are 6 and 7 that can clear browser, and they do things better than I can do. So are we looking at the right questions? Like, at what point is the razor safe for the child? Right,
let me go to my next slide. I think it's here we go. Anybody familiar with Jonathan Haidt? So he wrote the book, Anxious Generation, and these are his 4 standards. So when we're thinking about open access, I wouldn't be giving a 6-year-old the phone. Right? Our kids had Fire tablets, which was a kid-specific device. They could play games, and I don't think there's any video content they could watch. They could play games, and we download it. Right? So yes, the babysitter reality. Right? Within reason, we're also 2 working parents. We know what that's like, and then you've got life group or home group, and your house is full of kids, and what do we do? Put the kids down and stuff. I did drop a mention into that table. Anybody familiar with Team Edge? There were YouTube content. My daughters consumed their content for probably about 2 or 3 years. Young Christian guys, basically pranks. It's not Christian content, but they're young Christian guys, and it's entertaining. So if we put Team Edge on and we knew we'd be okay, worst things, not worst, but occasionally they would share the gospel. But most of the time, it's somebody getting a pie in the face, or they build these massive contraptions and trying to cover it with soap and try and climb it. That kind of fun thing. So, but again, age appropriate. I'm talking when they were 11 and was it 15? So a 6-year-old, no. But the challenge we have now is really with from the 8 up. It's some schools you'll have kids 8 years old with phones at school. This is his standards. Okay, so no phones in schools. That means essentially no smartphones in schools. So 298 Rand, you can get a 3210. Now, sorry, I think I just dropped that. So a dumb phone, essentially. Can I reassemble that? Awkward. If it's broken, you can have mine. But yeah, so there is an essential communication tool that doesn't have to be a smartphone. I'm scared to touch it now. Okay, so no smartphone before high school. No social media before 16. And this is, for me, the real kicker, is that it still works. Good. Thank you, Jesus. Sorry. More independent and free play, not more mom-organized activities. Right? We don't need busier moms and dads. We need kids that can get bored. So if you look at this, this is where a lot of the challenge is. We do have a challenge in South Africa. We can't just let our kids go roam in the veldt, like I did. Bring home a snake and scare my mom. Right? We can't do that because we've got other challenges. But we've got yards, we've got playgrounds, we've got places where we can take our kids and walk away. And allow them to climb trees. When last did you see a kid with a broken arm? We have one at our school at the moment. And it was a sports injury. When I was at school, like, every class there's a guy with a broken arm. Right? But what we have is we have brokenness that we can't see. And because there's so much of it happening, so much of their play is online. And so there is some criticism for him, but you can go and look at his research. There's a lot of his research is available on his site, Jonathan Knight, and he's pioneering a lot of this, and schools in South Africa are buying into it. So our school went no phones until grade 9. So my wife's also principal at school. They've now incorporated safe pouches. So you bring your phone to school, puts it in a pouch, and it's locked for the day. So you keep your phone, but you can't open it. You know those magnetic things when you go to Edgar's, or it's a similar principle. At the end of the day, you can go and unlock your phone and you go home. So you still keep your phone with you. So you can go and unlock it at any stage. Because what we don't want to do is start collecting phones. It becomes a liability. But so that's becoming. I think there's 4 or 5 schools in South Africa, in Cape Town, that have pioneered that phone pouches. But social media, including WhatsApp, as I said before, the safeguarding and child protection world, WhatsApp is dangerous because who monitors it? And essentially, it's the challenge with WhatsApp is grooming. So someone can jump onto a group, add your kid to a group, essentially now they have direct contact. So if you have your child on a WhatsApp, you need to make sure that you're the only one who has the contact on WhatsApp. My suggestion is to get a 3210. Interestingly enough, my daughter, the 17-year-old, asked for one because she's maxed out. She's tired, and I think we're going to see this teenagers being, I just want to turn it off. Because they also, anxiety is because it's always on. I can always be accessing. And interestingly enough, some of the feedback from this, they've asked kids at schools, how do you feel about no phones in schools? And they say, if everyone buys in, great. Because it's the FOMO, right? I don't want somebody posting something about me and I only find out about it 8 hours later. So if nobody's posting, fantastic. So I'd say those four, very helpful. And I would say, if you're at a school where they haven't addressed this yet, as a parent, bring it up. And do it sensitively. This, any other questions? Related to, yeah.
None of the technology that's been developed is going anywhere at the end of the day. So the social media, all of that. And we ourselves, we did not see the impact that it would have on us. As, I'm young, but I know even my parents have said they did not know that how they would feel about the technology. So what is to say that we really know the mechanisms that we need, just keeping our children off the phone at school? Would that really be the difference between them not getting into an online space because some other child might show them something, just getting right outside the school grounds, now someone else shows them their phone? Those concerns are still there. So would giving your child a phone in the first place that has access at all to those apps be a good thing? So, because even for me, what we do is, me and my wife, we curate specifically what we watch. We are very, because we are very scared of showing our son something that might influence him. And would it not then be better for us to learn how to curate what we watch? And that's TV, that's everything. Would that not be better than trying to say, fully eliminate? I understand up until a certain age, but would that not be better?
So the short answer is no. And the reason is we can curate, but we can't control. So believe it or not, you're familiar with the Bible app? Right, so we had a 16 case based on the Bible app. Because you can share an image. I can create an image and share it. So if you want a silver bullet in this space, Holy Spirit, loving parent, engaged. That's the silver bullet. Is you walk in step with the Spirit, and for your child. So this is a generic answer because we have a generic problem. So he's written a book about a generational problem. So the generational answer, that's generation. You know your kid. But you know your kid as you see your kid. This is why you need the Spirit. And when you suddenly think, gosh, something feels off, trust that intuition. And that's why verify. Because there's stuff that happens and suddenly it's like, that was off, that reaction. And that might be the Spirit of God bringing it to your attention. I'm going to check anyway. Right? Because it's so the silver bullet, really, just to say it again, Holy Spirit, engaged parent, loving parent. And the tools, there's 1,000 tools. Well, let me get to the tools first. And this, you can get the list. These are all filters you can pay for and get on. And yes, but they figure it out. A lot of these have got back doors. You can have a multiple user on it. You can sign into a different user on your phone. And so there's even apps now where you can switch your home screens and have a different home screen. So yes, these are helpful. Not to bring any attention to any one of them, but they can all. Some of them are, so Bark, for example, Bark and FYI, they actually have what they call deep packet searching. So they actually search within your emails, within your messages for keywords. And as a parent or the guardian on that app, you get a notification when certain words or content pops up. And then there's other ones that are just, like Google Safe Searches, just limits what they can see. They can also turn that off. But other resources and I've got, obviously, Anxious Generation. For full disclosure, I haven't read the book, but I've read a lot of his research and a lot of the stuff on his website. His research is fascinating. And that's why I can confidently say the short answer is no, because it's been done. And the impact at schools when we've taken the phones away, kids are talking to each other again. Kids are playing each other. I don't want to see broken arms, but kids are playing, right? But I've mentioned Keep Your Love on there. Anybody familiar with Danny Silk? If you haven't read that book, it's a great book about connection. But it really highlights how the thing that I love about that concept, I need to keep my love on for my kid when they mess up too. Very often I think I've had the risk of going too strong when a theme has been brought up. Because I'm a Christian dad and I'm a pastor. So how could you, in this home, right? So the reality with that is, she's my first sheep, right? Jesus saw them. He had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless and without a shepherd. My encouragement to you is be a shepherd on life. Like, if I think there's a lion, sorry if it's a cat, but it's getting whacked. You get my point? It's like, I'm that guy. I can always say, sorry, I've overreacted. Let me pull it back because I love you. That's why. Right? But I've got to shepherd my kids. And the goal is to keep, but I don't need to overreact always because I'm embarrassed. Or because I'm scared, what is the church going to think? Or what is my home group leader going to think? Now, I mentioned this to Samuel. One of the reasons why I wanted you around tables is because there are now people in your world where this topic is on the table. I mentioned at the beginning. Please just talk to each other. Pray for each other. If there's a concern and you don't know how to address it, bring it up with someone that you've chatted with tonight. There's incredible wealth in this. And yes, I've spent time in the game, but I'm not a specialist. I don't think there's anybody who is. This thing is still growing and we're learning and we don't know all the answers, but he does. And when we have blind spots, that's why we need community. Because I'm really struggling. This is what I think's happening. What do I do? Well, remember, that other table said that. Maybe go talk to that guy. Thank you very much.